A very good evening, dear viewers. Welcome to the English News Bulletin here on Rwanda Television. We'll begin with the headlines. The Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Antoine Kajangwe, commented on Rwanda's economic situation following the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. The Senate held discussions with the Ministry of Trade and Industry focusing on the challenges facing residents living near industrial zones. My name is Olive, and it's always a pleasure to have you on board now, kicking off today's edition with the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Today, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Antoine Kajangwe, spoke to RBA about the current economic situation in Rwanda, the significance of the development, how soon the public can expect any changes to be felt, and the measures the government is taking to prevent artificial price increases and mitigate the overall impact. We have details.
In the short term, the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I would advise cautious optimism. The situation is very fluid. It changes constantly, it changes hourly. It's, I would say, unpredictable what will happen, in the course of the next day, in the next 10 days. The opening is also contingent on a number of factors. One, of course, the ongoing ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's also contingent on the US and Iran concluding a broader framework agreement. For me, that will be the clear indicator that there is something that we then need to start planning around. But for the moment, as government, I would say we're cautiously optimistic, but our assessment and our policy is still addressing the crisis as it is, as though the Straits is closed, as though there's still an ongoing conflict. The current crisis, obviously, let's assume that the ceasefire holds and continues into the future. The effect is not immediate, right? The price of gas does not reduce overnight, and it likely won't reduce overnight because of the lag time for which petroleum products arrives in the country. That's one. Secondly, international prices are not automatic. They take time to adjust. As much as the price of barrel fell almost by $30 as opposed to the announcement, it takes time for that to be reflected at the pump. Thirdly, obviously, it's also just how prices are priced is also related to other things besides just the cost of barrel. It's also the cost of transportation. There's risk premiums that shipping companies, tankers place on the price of product. So I would say if the ceasefire holds, if the situation continues as it is, we could look at anywhere between 3 to 6 months for the situation to normalize, for the impact to start getting felt on the market. But again, this is really speculation. It's dependent on so many factors that at the moment are just not yet very clear. The first effect and the first measure the government took was not to increase price on diesel, right? And diesel is a very important product. It's a product that's used primarily for the transportation of goods. It's both in-country transport, but also transport of goods across borders. That has an impact on the price of other commodities. Of course, potatoes, maize, beans, and other commodities are transported by trucks that use diesel, and so maintaining and stabilizing that price, especially for diesel, is very important. And so that was an important measure for government to take to ensure price stability for commodities. However, we also recognize that some traders, some business people might want to take advantage of the current situation, inflate prices artificially or unnecessarily. First and foremost, it's raising awareness to the business community, making sure that everybody understands that the cost of goods should not be contingent on the increase of petrol specifically. And so it's making that clear across the entire business community. However, if there are those who are deliberately taking advantage of the situation, then there are sanctions in place, there's inspections on the market that happen countrywide down to the sector and cell level. At all levels, working closely with the relevant agencies, but also with local government to ensure that people aren't speculating and taking advantage of the consumer. There's measures that we've started as government, as Rwanda, the citizens, to mitigate against, especially against international petroleum price fluctuation. One is this transition to electric vehicles. If you've seen, Rwanda is one of the early adopters of electric vehicles in Africa. So that has helped cushion a lot of consumers against the increase of petroleum products. Secondly is also making sure that you build enough buffers against short-term effects of increase of petroleum products, and so making sure that working with the private sector we have enough buffer stock of commercial product, but we also have enough commercial reserves to mitigate against any prolonged impact. Government also invested in its own strategic reserves to ensure that there is sufficient petroleum products in the event of any prolonged conflicts, not just related to this, but also other future external vulnerabilities. What I can say is let's remain vigilant, let's remain aware that the situation is still precarious. We're not out of the woods yet. The signals that we're seeing are positive, but we need to remain alert that the situation can change at any time. And so for that, we also need to start taking personal behavior changes. So for instance, if you can walk and not drive, walk. If you can carpool to the office, if you can carpool your children, students together to school, turn off your LPG, your gas at home, turn off your AC, open your window when you're driving around the city. Try to conserve your energy as much as possible, because we just don't know the situation that we're in. So just be smart about the situation that's currently happening. Government is prioritizing availability of product, and we can guarantee that there is sufficient quantity in the country, in transit, at the port. We have full visibility of what's coming in the country, and we're confident that we'll continue to have product, petroleum product, for the foreseeable future. But let's stay vigilant, let's stay aware that this is a situation that can escalate at any point, but we're hopeful that it will de-escalate in the days and weeks to come.
And that was Antoine Kajangwe, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Trade and Industry, speaking about the current economic situation in the country. Now, moving ahead, on Friday, the Senate held discussions with the Ministry of Trade and Industry focusing on the challenges facing residents living near industrial zones and the need to strengthen infrastructure in these areas to ensure that industries continue to play a meaningful role in national development. The discussions took place between members of the Senate Committee on Economy and Finance and the Minister of Trade and Industry, Prudence Sebahizi. Key issues included the implementation of existing strategies and the management of infrastructure within designated industrial parks. The committee is currently overseeing the enforcement of a Senate resolution urging the government to accelerate the development of infrastructure in these zones. Attention was also drawn to the impact of industrial development on surrounding communities, particularly residents living close to factories, and concerns over schools located near industrial areas. Minister Sebahizi outlined ongoing measures aimed at addressing these challenges, and the discussions further explored whether Rwanda's current pace of industrial growth is sufficient to meet the targets set under the second phase of the National Strategy for Transformation, while acknowledging existing challenges. The minister noted that industrial production continues to grow steadily. Under the NST2, the government aims to boost the production of essential goods through local industries to meet domestic demand, reduce imports, and attract investment into the industrial sector To achieve these industrial zones are being developed and strengthened, including those in Kigali, Bugesera, Rwamagana, and other parts of the country. Now, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Ambassador Olivier Nduhungirehe, attended the 5th Antalya Diplomacy Forum in Antalya, Turkey. During his speech, Minister Nduhungirehe highlighted some of the strategies Rwanda has adopted to boost the economy and facilitate investment, including the removal of the visa requirements for all Africans in order to ease the movement of people and goods. He also spoke about job creation programs, particularly for young people, through the development of industries and the promotion of value addition to locally produced goods. Minister Olivier Nduhungirehe further stated that the government of Rwanda has chosen to encourage young people to become self-employed in order to reduce unemployment rates, and he noted that this approach has been effective as those who create their own jobs also go on to employ others. Now, in Huye district, families of elderly widowed survivors living at the Impinganzima village have expressed gratitude to the Rwandan Patriotic Front for saving their lives during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. They also thanked the First Lady, Her Excellency Jeannette Kagame, for sheltering them after losing their families and children, leaving many of them completely alone. The remarks were made during a Kwibuka 32 commemoration event attended by members of Unity Club in Rumuri, who joined residents in honoring the memory of those killed. One survivor recounted her painful journey, surviving the genocide with 2 children, only to later lose them due to continued persecution, leaving her to live on her own. Leaders at the event described the elderly residents as a lasting symbol of the history of the genocide against the Tutsi, pledging continued support and regular visits to ensure they are not left in isolation. They also warned that cases of harassment targeting survivors still occur, stressing that authorities will take firm action against anyone spreading genocide ideology or divisionism. The Impinganzima village in Huye currently shelters more than 100 elderly survivors, providing care and dignity to those who endured some of the darkest moments in Rwanda's history. Now, in Kigali, staff from the Rwanda Revenue Authority and the Office of the Auditor General have been urged to deepen their understanding of Rwanda's history and actively counter genocide ideology. The call was made during the Kwibuka 32 commemoration event, where a survivor of the genocide against the Tutsi shared a powerful testimony, stressing that without the intervention of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, no Tutsi would have survived. The Auditor General Alexis Kamuhire emphasized the importance of preserving the history of the genocide and standing in solidarity with survivors. Meanwhile, Rwanda Defense Force spokesperson Brigadier General Ronald Givanga called on young people to safeguard the country's achievements and continue building a resilient nation. He warned that although genocide ideology still exists in the region, Rwanda remains firmly committed to ensuring such atrocities never happen again. Participants were reminded that commemoration is not only about remembrance, but also about drawing lessons from Rwanda's past to shape a united future. Now, in Kigali, also the private sector federation urged business leaders to actively counter genocide ideology in their workplaces, both locally and abroad, where many resources and trade goods. The call was made during a Kwibuka 32 commemoration honoring victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. As part of the event, PSF members donated 5 million Rwandan francs to a survivors group in Nyarugenge district to support their income-generating activities. One survivor shared how before the genocide against the Tutsi, they were denied equal access to education, making it difficult to pursue entrepreneurial ambitions. The survivor also credited the Rwandan Patriotic Front for ending the genocide against the Tutsi and enabling him to rebuild his life as a business owner in Kigali. PSF chairperson François Twagirumukiza acknowledged the role some private sector actors played in the genocide, stressing the responsibility of today's business community to reject divisionism and safeguard national unity. The Minister of Trade and Industry, Prudence Sebahizi, also remarked that the genocide shattered Rwanda's social fabric, noting that rebuilding unity remains central to the country's progress. He urged entrepreneurs to stand firmly against any form of discrimination. The commemoration concluded with a visit at the Nyanza Kicukiro Genocide Memorial, where participants laid wreaths and paid tribute to more than 100,000 Tutsi laid to rest there. Still matters of commemoration, at the Kigali Genocide Memorial, members of the Rwanda's Human Resource Professionals Association have commemorated victims of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, calling for ethical leadership in today's workplaces. They urged HR practitioners to foster safe and supportive environments for employees, contrasting sharply with the discrimination and persecution faced by Tutsi in workplaces before and during the genocide. One survivor recounted how from the early 1980s, Tutsi employees were systematically harassed, losing peace not only at work, but also in their homes and daily lives. Association leaders emphasized to the responsibility of HR professionals to promote unity and well-being, noting that productive institutions depend on employees who feel secure and respected. Historian Tito Rutarimara warned that genocide ideology was deeply rooted through years of indoctrination, beginning from a young age. Participants said remembrance must go beyond policies, highlighting the need for humanity and values in leadership. The event, part of Kwibuka 32, honored both employees and employers, with more than 250,000 victims laid to rest at the Kigali Genocide Memorial. And now this marks the end of tonight's bulletin. Thank you so much, dear viewers, for staying with us. Have a fruitful and restful weekend.